Tina Lovelock is here with us tonight, and I ask all the speakers, is there anything nice special I need to say when I introduce you tonight? Have you starred in any films or written any books? And Tina has written a book. She's going to talk about careers tonight, and I know already I've talked to a few people in the room. There's a curve in the road of many people's careers at the moment, so it's a timely opportunity to reflect on how we all manage our careers. Maybe Tina's video will be really quite popular, I imagine, currently. So please give her a warm welcome.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christina Lovelock. I've worked in tech for over 20 years, and that's been mostly public sector tech. And it's really interesting, kind of building on Simon's earlier session, that one of my phrases that I use about tech is that no one gets into tech because we like talking about our emotions. But I'm glad that Simon went first with a lot of that kind of coaching style, understanding ourselves a bit better, because this session's really going to build on that, understanding ourselves, where we're going with our careers. So whether you feel stuck in a rut or you just want the opportunity to take stock, we can all really benefit from building in time to reflect on where we are in our careers, where have we been, and where are we going. As most of us are just kind of stumbling through our careers. There's no career planning going on. When we have conversations about progression and our careers with our managers, it's not often that effective because we feel like we can really only talk about the organisation that we work for. So before we get started, I want to do a little bit of career health and safety, which is to invite everyone to stand up just for a moment. Nothing bad's going to happen, I promise. Now, I want you to remain standing if you're sat next to your boss. Does that apply to anybody? Anyone sat next to their boss? If you're your own boss, you can sit down, that's okay. If you do find yourself sat next to your boss, just shuffle away. It's going to be obvious why. We're going to get to that shortly, but most of us are safe, so that's good news. So this is how we're going to spend our time together today. We're going to start off with a bit more group therapy. We're going to talk about some of the common challenges that we face as tech professionals. And we're also going to look at some of the options open to us. Sometimes we feel like we're trapped, we're out of options, but we're going to see how that is not true. We're going to use some models, look at some frameworks to get some objectivity about understanding where we are now in our careers. And I'm going to introduce the idea of job crafting, because I firmly believe that the perfect job is not out there. It's not a case of finding it. It's about thinking about the role that you're in and how you can make it the best possible job for you. And job crafting is a really important way to be able to do that. So some of the challenges we face as tech professionals. Sometimes we get put in a box, we get told to stay in our lane, we're not trusted to step outside, we're not encouraged to gain new skills. Perhaps we're too valuable in the role that we're doing and we're not given opportunities to grow and expand our skill set and experiment. So we can find ourselves a little bit limited, particularly within our organisation, but in our career as a whole. Sometimes we're not sure what progression actually looks like, particularly in small organisations. If we're thinking about what are the opportunities for me to progress, and we're thinking, well, my boss isn't going anywhere, so where does that leave me? What opportunities is there for me to move forward in my career? It can be very difficult to talk about. It can be very difficult to try and understand what our options are and how we might move forward. There can be a general lack of direction in tech. And that plays out in a couple of ways. One is that we're so busy, we're so thinly stretched, everything is moving forward an inch at a time because we're trying to do everything all at once. Our organisation doesn't seem to have any idea what its priorities are, and we're kind of lacking direction generally within our roles. And that can translate into a lack of feeling that we know what the direction is for our careers. We don't understand what the options are, we don't understand what's important to us or how we might move forward. And then increasingly in tech, there's a lot of turf wars going on. Anybody in a turf war at the moment with another professional discipline? There's a lot of professional disharmony with new roles being added to the landscape, lack of clarity about who's supposed to use what, who's allowed to use which tools or meet which stakeholders. And that can lead to a lot of frustration, a lot of treading on each other's toes, and a lot of professional disharmony amongst what should be colleagues, and they become adversaries in our workplaces. And then the last one is just the amount of change that we are all experiencing with new systems, new strategies, new leaders, new technologies, new job roles getting added to the landscape, organisations merging, restructuring. All of that is really difficult to keep up with. And quite often in organisations, we are the ones bringing a lot of this change to our colleagues. But it's hard to be positive about change all the time. And when there's so much change going on, it can feel very difficult to take time to take stock, understand where we are, what's important, and where we're going. So these are some of the challenges that we're all navigating as tech professionals. But as tech professionals and business change professionals, we like logic and we like objectivity. And so we're going to use that propensity towards analysis and use some of that analytical skills on ourselves. And we're going to use a few different models. We're going to look at a career options model. We're going to talk about the idea of career ladders. And we're going to talk about the push and pull of what keeps us in our role or what attracts us to trying a new role. So the career options model, now I do like a 4-box grid, and this is not the only one that you're going to see tonight. I think that they are a very useful thinking tool, but I particularly like this one. And even when we feel stuck, when we feel like we're out of options and we don't know how to move forward, I really like that this model tells us that there's 4 options, and actually 4 groups of options that are always available to us. And if we think about these 2 axes, in terms of our organisation, there's 2 things we can do. We can either stay or we can go. And in terms of the role that we're in, we can either commit to the role that we're in now, or we can change and do something else. So that creates 4 different quadrants. And let's start here in the top right, where we say, okay, I quite like what I'm doing now. I've got these skills that I've developed over a number of years. I enjoy this role. But for whatever reason, this organisation is not challenging me anymore. Perhaps it's not giving me opportunities to progress. Perhaps I don't like my manager. And I'm going to look for a new organisation. So I'm going to stick with the role that I've been doing, the role that I'm doing now, but I'm going to look for a new place to do that. I'm going to take my skills somewhere else. Secondly, we can say, I don't want to be doing this role anymore. I need a new challenge. I want to learn new skills. And actually, for whatever reason, this organisation isn't the right place for me to do that. I'm going to look for an entirely new role, might be learning new skills or might be using skills that I've gained previously in my career. And I'm going to do that in a new organisation. Over here, we say, right, okay, so this organisation is a good fit for me. It's a good alignment of values. I like the people that I work with. I want to stay here, but I want to do something new. I want a new challenge, and I'm going to look and see what else this organisation has to offer me. And the 4th one says, okay, I've thought about all of the other options, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit to the role that I'm in now, and I'm going to do it in my current organisation. And all of a sudden, it's not about being stuck, because we've looked at the other options that are available, and this is now a choice. It's not feeling stuck in this role in this organisation. It's actively choosing to do that. And that's not about giving up or saying I don't want to progress. There's still opportunities that we can look for to increase our skills and potentially progress and take on more responsibility within that professional discipline. But it's saying this is where I want to be now. This is the right place for me. And then it really reframes the idea that we're stuck in that role. So we often talk about careers as ladders, and a lot of tech careers, the ladder looks something like this, where it's a something at the bottom, tester, developer, project manager, business analyst, whatever it is. And then we use these kind of prefixes, senior, lead, manager when we've got responsibility for people, then head of roles and even director of roles as we get more responsibility. But there are opportunities to step off this ladder, and the first one comes around here between this senior and lead area, where we say, oh, you know, maybe there's not as many career progression opportunities in this organisation as I would like, or actually I don't really think I want to manage a team. And then we step off the ladder in this way of called go contracting. Maybe I'm going to go contracting. But there's another way to step off the ladder as well. And that's to look at some of the related disciplines, all of the transferable skills that we've built up on our tech journey, and think of the colleagues that we work with, the professional disciplines that surround us, and think, yeah, actually, I'd like to try that role, I'd like to do that thing. And particularly in tech, our careers are no longer linear. They are, in fact, squiggly. But stepping off the ladder is not a one-way situation. We can step off the ladder, we can go contracting, we can try an adjacent discipline, but we can get back on the ladder again. I think sometimes there's a lot of fear of, I've got to stay on this ladder because I've been working my way up this ladder and I can't deviate. But particularly in tech, we do have a lot of other options open to us, and roles emerge that didn't exist when our career started. Now we're going to have a lot more roles, a lot more jobs, and work in a lot more sectors than our parents. So it's really important to kind of change our mindset from this idea of being on a ladder that I committed to when I was 18 or 23 years old and thinking that I have to stay on it and progressing in this way. And actually it's always just about making the next best choice. And it's not looking into the future and thinking, where do I want to be in 5 years' time? It's looking around us and saying, of all the options that are open to me now, what makes sense? And we can try something and realise that it's not for us, and that actually we want to return to a skill set that we've used previously. And that's fine. And let me tell you a secret. No one actually cares what you're doing or where you are on this ladder. And we all worry that people are going to say, oh, well, I used to be a lead something and then I moved to this other organisation, I was only a senior. Nobody is paying that much attention to anybody else. They're all worried about themselves. Now, we kind of worry about how's this going to look, and what if I move out of product management and into architecture? Yeah, how's that going to look? What's that going to look like on my CV? What are people going to say? Well, people aren't going to say anything. People are not going to care. It's going to look good on your CV. So don't worry about trying different things and being able to experiment with your career. Because tech careers do give us loads of options, and if you're not embracing that continuous learning and those opportunities that come up, then you're perhaps not having the full experience of the tech career. It's perhaps not doing as much for you as it could. And sometimes we can feel that we're in a tug of war with ourselves when we're trying to understand all of the factors that are encouraging us to stay in an organisation or encouraging us to move on. And these are the kind of push and pull factors that we all experience. And which ones of these are going to be more important are going to change throughout our life. It's going to be different depending on your health situation, your family, the amount of money that you need to earn, the length of commute that you're prepared to do. And all of these things are playing into our decision-making process about whether this is a good job and whether I should stay here or whether I should try my hand at something else. Now, it's very easy to tell ourselves stories, things like, oh, I've got a real level of autonomy and flexibility in my current role and I wouldn't find that somewhere else. Well, maybe you would. We don't know. It's always worth being open to the opportunities that surround us and being honest with ourselves about how we're evaluating some of these things and which things are really important to us. And we're going to look at a model to do that in just a minute. But it's also important to ask ourselves this question once in a while, which is, what part is fear playing in my decision-making process? Now, fear is real. We all have bills to pay. There are things that we need to take seriously. But fear often stops us from doing things that we would like to do. So it's always worth interrogating that fear, understanding where it comes from. Is it genuine? Are the stories that I'm telling myself, are they true? Are the stories that I'm telling myself about this role and, well, I wouldn't get a higher paying role, or this is such a great team, are those things true? Because sometimes we have to interrogate whether fear is hiding from us, but really that's one of the main factors keeping us where we are or encouraging us to move. So because tech sector roles tend to be higher paying roles, sometimes people can feel like they've got golden handcuffs keeping them in the tech sector. So we're going to do a little thought experiment, which is, if all jobs paid the same, what would you do? So I want you to have just a couple of minutes with your neighbour talking about this. How would you spend your time? What would you do if all jobs paid the same? Okay, so I hope you've learned something interesting about yourself or your neighbour there. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, but I will reveal what I would do if all jobs pay the same. Now, I would quite like to do something to do with cakes and books, like maybe own a bookshop that was also a cafe. But I think what you're seeing here is that really I like eating cakes and reading books, and I've not quite figured out how to monetize that. But yeah, that's what I would like to do with my time. So where am I now? We're going to look at a few different models. We're going to look at a now and next model, which is another 4-box grid. We're going to look at the wheel of work, which comes from, in the coaching space, the wheel of life. So some people might have seen it in that. And then we're going to talk about the question line and how we frame different questions that we ask ourselves. So this model talks about the level of clarity we have about what we're doing now and what we want to be doing in the future. So if you have a high level of clarity on your current role, you know exactly why you're doing this job, you know why you're working for this organisation, you know what you're working towards and where you want to be, then you've focused. And these people are most likely to be highly engaged and performing well for their organisations. At the other end of the scale, we have people who are like, why am I doing this job? I've kind of, I took it and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do and I still don't know what I want to do. And these people are most likely to be disengaged and a bit unproductive because they feel lost. They don't feel like they've got a sense of direction. They don't know what they're doing with their time or their careers. And that's a really difficult place to be in. We also have people who have got a good idea of where they want to go, the role they want to do in the future, and they may be a little bit impatient because they're not in that role now. They maybe can't see how they can move from where they are to what they want to do. I've managed a lot of people in my time. I'm a business analyst by background. A lot of people who wanted to move into lead BA roles or business architecture roles, but they just couldn't really see how to do that, and they couldn't see how they didn't have all the skills now to enable them to do that. So sometimes it's about patience. It is about waiting to gain the right experience and find the right opportunity. And that can be quite a difficult position to be in as well. People who know what they're doing now, they understand the job inside now, they know the organisation that they work for, but maybe it's not challenging anymore, maybe it's not allowing them to learn anything new, and they don't know what else they would do. That, if I left here, well, what would I even do? They are likely to need clarity on what comes next, because you can easily go from being someone who's highly engaged and high performing to actually feeling a bit listless and a bit stuck in your organisation. And now you're about to see why we did a test to see who was sat next to their manager, because I'd like you to talk to the person next to you, to be really honest and tell them which of these 4 boxes resonates most with you. So how do we know if it's time to go? It's a really difficult decision, and there's no easy answer to this. So I'm going to give you the classic business analysis answer to any question. Does anybody know the classic BA answer to any question, or general consultants actually? But it depends. So it depends. It depends on so many things. It depends on where you are in your career, your health, your life. All of those things that we talked about before, the level of autonomy that you want, the amount of commute that you're prepared to put up with, the type of boss you're prepared to put up with. So how do we know if it's time to go? So the wheel of work allows us to try and bring a bit of objectivity to something which is really subjective. And it allows us to get some of our ruminating thoughts out onto a piece of paper in a logical and organised way. So there's a few steps that we follow. First of all, we select some key aspects about our job. So all of those things that we saw before on the push and pull, we look at those and try and select the things that are most important to us right now. So we might choose salary, culture and values, progression opportunities. A lot of these are quite tangible things. We might also want to try and build in some less tangible things, like the level of respect that I feel, or the level of challenge. Am I learning new things? So whatever is important to you is absolutely fine. That goes on the wheel. And then we plot those on a scale from could not be worse to could not imagine it being any better. And this allows us to see if it's just one thing that is infecting how we feel about our jobs. Is it just one aspect? that's actually dragging down how we feel about everything else? Or are there some related highs and related lows? And there's a couple of really good reasons to do this. One is that if you realise that actually there's just this couple of things getting me down about my role, but in general I think it's great and I want to stay here, it allows you to have a really informed conversation with your manager. It shows that you've reflected on where you are, what you're liking about the role, what you're finding frustrating or challenging. Or if you think, right, that's it, I'm going out on the job hunt, it allows you to think, what are the things that are going to be important to me about a new role and a new organisation? So if something that's really important for you is to have internal learning opportunities, things like an internal community of practice, lunch of learns, then that's something that you can talk to recruiting managers and recruiters about. It's something you can ask about in the hiring process, and to establish whether that organisation is going to be a good fit and give you what you need, knowing that a previous organisation didn't necessarily tick all the boxes. So the thing is to have this and be able to see it as a picture and say, what is this telling me? And it's a kind of approach to coaching yourself in your career, asking these reflective questions that we always are too busy for and we don't make time for. And asking these reflective questions is really important. And actually, when we think about questions, we can think about hanging them on a washing line for the present, the past, and the future. And all of us have something that naturally draws our attention. So we can ask ourselves some questions about, why did I leave my current role? What made me feel like I was confident to make that decision to leave? And kind of examine what we've learned from the past and how does that apply to this current situation. So that's a kind of backwards looking one. Or what was the best team that I ever worked in? Is it this team that I'm in right now? What was different between this team and that team? We can notice whether our attention is being drawn to the past, the present, and the future, and make sure that we're asking ourselves the questions in all three of those time frames. And it's not about setting unrealistic questions like, where am I going to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? It's more like, what skills would I like to learn in the next 12 months? Am I going to have opportunities to do that in this role, in this organisation? What opportunities or skills would this organisation allow me to do, or what skills would I be able to gain? What experiences could I gain? Who are some of my best working relationships right now, and do I get to work with them? So thinking about these reflective questions on those three time frames is a really good way of thinking about that wheel of work and thinking about what does it tell us and how does it help me to make a decision about what I'm going to do in my career. And I mentioned that I was going to introduce this idea of job crafting. Who's heard that term before? Anybody come across that term? A couple of people. New to most people. So job crafting, in my opinion, is really important for everybody to know about, because great jobs aren't found, they are made. So we're going to look at the different areas of job crafting, and then we're going to talk a little bit about gratitude in our careers. So job crafting can be done in three different ways. We can think about how we do our work, we can think about who we work with and our working relationships, and we can think about the purpose, so the meaning and the contribution of the work that we do. So for example, if your organisation has a mission, it tries to do something for its customers, what is that? What does it mean for you? And how does what you do every day contribute to that wider mission of the organisation? Now, this isn't just for public sector organisations and third sector and charity organisations. Financial services organisations allow people to buy homes, buy their first home, move into their dream house. That's really important. Telecommunication organisations connect families all around the world. That is so important. What are the ways that your role is helping someone, even if they have no idea that you exist or what you're doing, to help them do something that they want to achieve? And if we connect to our sense, connect what we do to that sense of purpose for the organisation, I call it the line of sight. It's much easier to understand why I come to work every day and understand how my role makes a difference. Maybe it only makes a difference for my colleagues. Maybe I'm making their lives better. It's not about seeing it through to an end customer. But how does what we do connect with the purpose of our roles and of our organisation? Now, quite often in tech, we have a lot of autonomy. We can approach things in different ways. No two projects are exactly the same. And the way that we do our work is quite different. So two people could be in the same job, but they're doing it quite differently. So if, for example, you are really interested in knowledge sharing, you can attend an internal community of practice. You can set up feedback sessions from an event like this that you've been to, or a conference. You can inject things into your role that nobody's asked for, but also nobody's really going to tell you that you can't do, to make your role just a little bit better for you. And thinking about the people that we work with, it sounds slightly Machiavellian, but we can think about, well, who are the people that have the best working relationships with them? And how could I work with them more regularly? How could we be on the same project? How could we have some kind of extracurricular activity that we're involved in together? And equally, who are the people that when that email comes in from them, you just go, oh no. Because we've all got them, we've all got somebody like that. And sometimes investing in those most difficult relationships can have the most transformative impacts on our jobs. Because having a great place to work is actually about having a great group of people that we work with. And there's often something that we can do to improve some of those working relationships, some of the ones that we dread, the people that we think that we don't have a great working relationship with. We can invest in those. And a great way to kind of figure out what you like and don't like about your current role is this love it or loathe it exercise. Because on the one hand, there's all of us, even in a job that you really like, there are some aspects of it that are draining. The things, the particular meeting, the governance meeting, where they get out the risk log and you're just like, oh no, not again. There's some things that we all find difficult. And then there's aspects of our role that we also find really energizing. So for me, I found that I was in back-to-back meetings all the time, just straight from one meeting into another, no time to do any of the actions, no time to reflect or prepare. And I found that really difficult. And so what I did was I started out blocking chunks of time in my diary, not big amounts of time, and I wasn't really rigid about it. I would overwrite it if people really needed to. But it actually just freed up a little bit of breathing space in my calendar. It allowed me to do some of the actions. It allowed me to prepare for some of the things where I was, instead of lurching from one place to the next. It made a big difference. And the other thing that I did that made a big difference is that I realised that I really like seeing my team face to face, especially if we could do it over a cup of tea. And I felt that that was a much more constructive way of doing my one-to-ones, where we could possibly make it so that those were in person. So over time, I just made those two little tweaks, try and do my one-to-ones in person and try and create some gaps and breathing space in my calendar. And it made such a massive difference to how my relationship was with work, making sure that I was feeling energized more of the time than I was feeling drained. And the thing about job crafting is that we don't have to ask anyone's permission. You don't have to write a business case. It's not like trying to get a permission to go on a conference. You just have to start doing it, because you know what those small things are that make a difference to you. Now, has anyone ever been a fire warden or attended any kind of social club to do with work, or first aider, anything like that? Yeah, a lot of hands up. So you're all doing job crafting. You're all making your roles a little bit more personalised to you, a little bit more how you want to spend your time, your working hours. And job crafting is just about making sure that you're doing more of the things that give you energy than drain you. And it's really interesting to do this as a group exercise with your team, because I mentioned there the risk log. There will be somebody in the team who loves the risk log, who loves that spreadsheet, who loves colour coding things. And unless we have that conversation and say, what's draining for me, is that something that's energising for you, and are able to kind of move some of the tasks around and give people development opportunities, it's win-win. We shouldn't assume that everybody hates what we hate and love what we love, because that's just not how people work. It's not how teams work. So now it's time for some career gratitude. And the reason we're going to talk about this is because there's lots of studies that tell us that people who are able to think about the contribution that other people have had on their career success are more successful. So basically, if we can look back on our careers and think about the people who have helped us, supported us, encouraged us, we're more likely to continue to succeed in our roles. So what I want you to do the next few minutes is to think about someone who believed in you, supported you, encouraged you, hired you or promoted you, and I want you to tell the person next to you a little bit about that person. Okay, thank you everyone. The reason it's so important to do this is because when we look at the past, where we're talking about framing those questions, the present, the past and the future, it's usually quite easy to come up with someone in the past who's helped us, supported us and guided us. It allows us to think, okay, well, who's in my life and who's in my career with me right now that inspires me or guides me or will hire me or promote me in the future? It allows us to think that we have been inspired and we've been able to progress and grow to this point in our careers, and we will be able to continue to do that. And we just have to look around us to figure out who those people are. But I'm going to up the ante a little bit and say, actually, the person that you were talking about, if it's someone you can contact, how amazing would it be to receive this message from you that says, dear someone, I was telling someone today about how grateful that I was for the support that you gave me in my career by doing whatever it was, and I wanted to let you know. So I'm going to invite you to use this format if you would like, use one of these many ways that we have of contacting each other, and get in contact with that person if you can, and tell them that you're grateful for how they've impacted your career. I'm sure they would be thrilled to receive that. And we don't do this to be cynical, to get anything out of it, that we think anything is going to happen as a result. But when we put those things out there, we allow people to reflect on the part that they've played in someone else's career. It's really powerful. It's really kind of positive energy. It could really make that person's day. I'm sure that they would love to hear that message from you. So here's what we've talked about today. We started off by talking about challenges, some of the things that we all face as tech professionals, like being put in a box, lacking direction, the level of change and being in turf wars with other professionals. We talked about the idea of career ladders and how actually that's not a really very useful metaphor, and we need to be able to step off the ladder, and there's different ways that we can do that. We talked about the push and pull, the tug of war that we feel within ourselves about whether I should stay in this role or whether I should try something new or do something different. And that all of those factors that we're using to evaluate that tug of war are very personal to us. So we looked at the wheel of work as a way to bring some objectivity to that really subjective decision. And we talked about the question line of not dwelling on the past or being only thinking about the present or being fixated on the future. That it's important to think about all of those 3 time frames to help us understand and navigate our careers successfully. And then we talked a little bit about job crafting. We talked about how there's different ways that we can change our roles to be even better for ourselves. So through thinking about the process, how we approach our work, who we work with, or the purpose, how we connect to a sense of purpose with our organisation and ourselves. And then at the end, we just had a couple of minutes on career gratitude and why that is so important to allow us to thank the people who have helped us to get where we are and realise that there are more people who are going to help us to continue to progress as we navigate through our careers in future. So I've loved this conversation. If you would like to connect with me, that's the QR code. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be delighted. Here's the book, Careers in Tech, Data and Digital, that we mentioned at the start. I would say buy it, but even better, buy it for somebody else, someone who needs to get started with their career in tech, data and digital. I also write for online and print magazines, including IT Now, which is the BCS quarterly magazine. So thank you all so much for your attention and playing along with all my little games.